we are going to, as titled, we're going to talk about the BNO controversy. So, first of all, what exactly is BNO? So, BNO stands for British National Overseas Passport. So it's a type of travel document that the UK has granted Hong Kongers before the handover back to China in 1997 happened. Hi, Cameron. Thank you so much for joining. And so, like I said, the BNO, oops, sorry, I moved my computer for a little bit. So the BNO is a travel document that the UK government has granted Hong Kongers born before 1997, and so it has just been a travel document. It does not guarantee any right of abode in the UK. Hi, Brett. Thank you so much for joining from Los Angeles. And so recently, what is this recent controversy in Hong Kong going around BNO passports is that it was because of the new national security law that Beijing imposed in Hong Kong back in June, late June. Because of that, the UK government said that they are going to basically change the circumstances and sort of the term for BNO passport holders to give them a chance to actually get British citizenship, because in the past, the BNO passport does not guarantee any right of abode. With the BNO, you can possibly, travel there visa-free. I mean, that's one of the advantages of an HKSAR passport too. You can go to the UK visa-free for a certain period, for example, 6 months. And so this recent controversy is that the UK government has announced that they will give BNO passport holder a sort of special pathway to allow them to go there visa-free. You can work there, you can study there for 5 years. And then after 5 years, you'll be able to get into a queue to apply for a British citizenship. And so, excuse me. And so this move has angered China. And just speaking of this BNO passport special scheme, it actually started to accept applications starting from today in Hong Kong. So BNO passport holders, even though, so BNO passport holders are majorly, they're all born before 1997. That was when Hong Kong is still under British colonial rules. Oops, my bad. There's a notification. There we go. So BNO passport holders are those people born before 1997, before the handover, because they need that sort of travel document under the British colonial rulings. So people who born after 1997, July 1st, that is the day when Hong Kong was handed back to China from the British government. People who born after that day, they don't have BNO. But now, the UK government has taken a step further to say that even if you're born after 1997, July 1st, if your family, your immediate family, or maybe your partner, your husband or your wife have a BNO passport, then you'll be eligible to participate in this scheme too. And so because of all these moves by the British government, this angers China a lot. And so China said, and Hong Kong government said, starting from the very same day, today, the day where the UK government will start accepting application, they said they will no longer consider the BNO passport as a valid travel document, or you cannot use it for identification purposes. So it is some sort of like a tit for tat reactions from Beijing, from the Chinese government, as well as the Hong Kong government. So the Hong Kong government said, we'll follow what the Chinese government set out because it's, it's a diplomatic issue, so to speak. So the local government will follow what the Chinese government, central government said. So that is the main controversy here. There have been, back and forth between China and the UK, saying there have been a lot of arguments recently over, what the Sino-British joint declaration, that is, for those who don't know, it is an agreement signed by both the Chinese and the British government on the day of the handover. So it was basically a bilateral agreement on, for example, how do we deal with, for example, like we have Hong Kongers will still enjoy the freedom that they enjoy, and what is the boundary, so to speak, for both countries. And so the Chinese government now has been arguing that in the joint declaration, there's no statement, there's no clause in the agreement that would allow the British government to kind of like intrude and have a say when it comes to, imposing, for example, national security law in Hong Kong, because is China's sovereignty, it's China's sovereign territory. So they're saying that we have the right to impose whatever we want, but the British have no say. But on the other hand, the British said, it is, our responsibility to Hong Kong people, to Hong Kong. We guarantee that we'll keep supporting the SAR, the Special Administrative Region, even though it has been handed back to China, and especially when it comes to issues on, for example, democracy, or like social movement and human rights issues. So the British said, we're going to stand behind Hong Kong in that sense and help protect those values and those rights of those people in Hong Kong. Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining. And sorry. Thank you for, I just got a messaging me, correcting me that the Sino-British Joint Declaration was actually signed before the handover. It was not the day of the handover. It was actually signed in 1984. So thank you so much for those who sent me the message. It was my part. The fault is on my part. So thank you so much for the correction. And so, yeah, like I said, it was the recent controversy around BNO, the BNO passport, is that some pro-establishment politicians in Hong Kong are even saying that, if Hong Kongers opt for taking the BNO passport route or, eventually getting British citizenship, then they should be denounced their Hong Kong citizens' identity. And eventually, some of them were even proposing to strip them of, their right of abode in Hong Kong, as well as their voting right in Hong Kong. What is this reaction amongst ordinary citizens on the BNO controversy in Hong Kong? It's really a mix, I would say, because the political situation, the political division in Hong Kong is quite extreme as well. Just like in the US, you have either, people who, I don't want to say like completely left wing or right wing, But here in Hong Kong, the political division has been quite obvious and extreme, or polarized, I should say. So it's either people who really support the social movement, the anti-government protest in Hong Kong that happened in 2019, and those who really support the government, the Hong Kong government, as well as the Beijing government. Now, why did I mention this polarized sentiment in Hong Kong? It's because it's kind of like either it's camp pro-democracy or camp pro-government. And for those who are pro-government, many of them would say, it doesn't really affect me because, I don't need a British citizenship. So I would not, for one, I would not apply for that. Or maybe I don't even have a BNO passport. Even if I have one, I'm not going to do anything about it. I'm not going to join a scheme. I'm not going to try to, move to England and try to get a citizenship there. So they're saying, it doesn't really matter. Even the Chinese government said they will no longer recognize the BNO passport as a travel document because I have other travel documents. For example, the Hong Kong SAR passport, which is, a very convenient passport. I cannot deny that. We can go to a lot of places without applying for a visa. So those who are pro-government would say, we don't really need that. And so it doesn't really affect me that much because I have other alternative travel documents to use. So it's not going to affect me that much. Hi, whoever is joining us this stream. On This Week in a Nutshell with Almond, we're talking about the BNO controversy. So BNO, again, it stands for British National Overseas Passport. It is a passport that granted to Hong Kongers who was born before 1997, July 1st. That is the day when Hong Kong was handed back to China from Britain. So it was because of the handover, or before the handover rather, and so Hong Kongers need some sort of travel document, and so that is the travel document given to them. So the base of the BNO passport was that it was just a mere travel document. It does not guarantee Hong Kongers any, right of abode or right of, to claim anything in Britain. You will not be able to. You can travel there, but you won't be able to settle there because it's not it does not guarantee you a right of abode, and also eventually, like we said, citizenship. But basically, the controversy around it is that Britain is changing its course. Basically allowing passport holders, BNO passport holders, to apply for this special scheme to grant them to get this BNO visa, which will allow them to stay in Britain for a longer period. We're talking about years, because right now, Hong Kongers can go to the UK visa-free for, if I remember correctly, it should be 6 months. And after that, you have to either leave the country for a bit and go back, or you have to apply for, a special visa, depending, what your purpose is, student visa or work visa, that kind of thing. So the changing course of Britain around BNO this time is that they would allow people who have a BNO passport to apply for a special BNO visa, which would allow them to stay in the country for years. And then eventually they can apply for British citizenship. So the Chinese government has reacted to this very strongly, saying that, the British should have no say. They have no right to kind of like interfere with their internal affairs or granting Hong Kongers citizenships. And so that's why we're just talking about just now how Hong Kong people in general have been feeling about this BNO issues. So like I said, the pro-establishment, the pro-government people, most of them said, they don't really care because it doesn't really affect them. For those who are more from the pro-democracy camp, a lot of young people that I've talked to, that I've spoken with, they said, many of them actually have applied for a BNO passport because the general trend before the whole anti-government protest happened is that people may have a BNO passport when they were born like really young, just maybe a few years, because young people, for example, in the 90s, they were just a toddler when the handover happened. So a lot of young people that I've spoken with, they said, I have a BNO passport. I chose to renew it because a lot of them have left it idle for years. It's a BNO passport. It's just a travel document, and we have our own passport. So a lot of people don't really see the need in the past of a BNO passport, especially when it does not guarantee anything like the right of abroad in Britain. So basically they're thinking, I don't really need to renew it. I'm just going to let it sit in my house somewhere in a corner. But recent years, especially after the social protest, a lot of people have chosen to renew their BNO passport to get a new valid BNO passport. But when I talked to them, a lot of people told me they were just, they have a plan to renew it just in case. So when I asked them, do you actually plan to leave Hong Kong? Do you actually plan to, go to the UK, settle there, if not other countries? And so a lot of people told me that, they don't know. They're still uncertain about it because Hong Kong it's the place where they grew up in. It is their home, it's their hometown, so they don't really want to leave. But then, so it's more like an insurance to get the BNO passport. Now that the British government has made it clear that with a BNO passport, you may be even able to get British citizenship. It could be sort of a relief for some people, especially those who, fear persecution because of their participation in the anti-government protests and whatnot. So, it's a mixed reaction in Hong Kong, but certainly strong reactions from Beijing and some pro-government politicians who proposed that, if Hong Kongers do get citizenship or do get the right of abode in Britain, then they should be stripped of their voting rights and their right to live in Hong Kong, to settle in Hong Kong. So that's the BNO controversy. Just one thing that I just want to add is that our chief executive, Carrie Lam, so Hong Kong's leader, has reported duty to President Xi Jinping. She, in her, so basically this report duty thing is an annual thing that happened. So every year, the chief executive of Hong Kong and Macau would need to report duty to the Chinese government, to the president, kind of like, talk about what they've done, kind of like what policies they've implemented and whatnot. It's always closed door, so we don't really know the really details of the meeting, but there will always be some sort of like summary coming afterwards, saying, kind of like summarizing what was the conversation between, the chief executive and the Chinese president was about. And so from what the Hong Kong media gathered, mainly those information actually come from mainland media. This is how sort of like the press and media works in China and Hong Kong in that sense, when we're covering some sort of like Chinese news, mainland Chinese news. So there was one highlight reported during the meeting of Chief Executive Carrie Lam and Chinese President Xi Jinping, was that Xi Jinping told Carrie Lam that he reiterated that people who rule Hong Kong, in the helm, should be patriotic, and that is a prerequisite to become a leader in Hong Kong. So this has also kind of stirred up a lot of commotion in Hong Kong, because patriotism, it's not a very common or popular topic among Hong Kongers, especially young people right now, because a lot of them are not happy with the government, and a lot of them are not happy with how Beijing is tightening its grip on Hong Kong, kind of like restricting our freedom, restricting the rights that we enjoy in Hong Kong. And so this whole patriotic leader remarks have been extended way further than the chief executive itself, this position itself, because now some critics have said, this Xi Jinping's patriotism remarks, it's sort of like an indicator and also a sign to tell the Hong Kong government to also act swiftly to make sure, government workers, civil servants, they're also patriotic. And so just days after this patriotism remarks came out, Hong Kong government top officials, they've already said that, it's not only the requirement for the chief executive or the top cabinet officials. It also applies to lower level civil servants, district councillors, lawmakers. This patriotic requirement, a prerequisite, applies to all of you who work in the government, for the government, within the government, so this remarks has been taken as a sign, understood as a sign, that the whole government system will be patriotic to Beijing. So this is, some critics say, this is worrying, because in the past 2 years, during the anti-government movement, actually a lot of, for example, civil servants, a group of civil servants also came out to protest against the government, the very government that they work for, and they work in, because of the controversial policies that the government put forth. So because of that, a lot of civil servants have been, penalized. They have been, now they have to sign a sort of declaration, or even take an oath swearing that they would pledge allegiance to the basic law, as well as to be loyal to the Hong Kong SAR government. So it has already taken place, the sort of, shaping and reforming how the government system, how the governance mechanism works in terms of the people. And those who refuse to sign a declaration or refuse to take an oath, they would not be able to actually get a job in the government. So yeah, it's getting here. Patriotic is a requirement right now, and pro-democracy activists are worried that it will be extended even further to cover, for example, NGOs that receive government fundings. Examples like this, and they're worried that that would eventually restricts a lot of freedom of expression, freedom of, speech in Hong Kong. It's not just some officials. It's not just some government workers. It could be all of us. It could be all Hong Kongers. So that is some concerns that, people have when we talk about, the relationship between Hong Kong and China. So yeah. And so thank you so much for joining this week's In a Nutshell with Almond on this BNO controversy, and also the relationship between Hong Kong and China, as always. And so thank you so much. Feel free to follow me on social media. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. So you can follow me, give me a subscribe here, so that you can know whenever I'm going live, and support me by sponsoring my journalism if you like it. So thank you so much, and we'll see you again next week. Bye, everyone.